You're welcome to this lesson. Today, you're going to learn how to answer YSSE questions on personification. I am Adeyemo with the brand name English with RMG, and this video is proudly brought to you by Ighota Virtual Learning Platform. In this video, you are going to learn all you need to know about personification for you to become a confident writer, a confident English user, and most importantly, excel in your YSSE examination. So, are you ready to learn with me today? Get your writing materials and let's begin. So, what is personification? I know that this is not new to you, but let's consider a few definitions. So, according to the Oxford Dictionary, personification is the attribution of a personal nature or human characteristics to something non human, or the representation of an abstract quality in human form. What do I mean by that? I know that students already know the common definition of all of these figure of speech. For personification, to say that it is a figure of speech that gives human attributes to inanimate objects. Yes, that is the simple definition that is embedded in all of the English that I read from the Oxford Dictionary definition. I just want you to get another perspective, another way to define it. But I know that you're already familiar that, oh, when you say something is personification, it simply means giving animate attributes to what? Inanimate objects. So let's consider a few examples. We have the sun smiled down on us, warming her skin. So we all know that smiling is an attribute of human being. So when you say the sun smiled down, you are communicating an information that is beyond you just saying that, oh, the sun is shining. You are kind of telling your reader that it is shining in a way that it is comfortable on the skin. It is shining in a way that you find it comfortable for you. You find it a beautiful experience. Do you understand? So another example we have the earth groaned under the weight of the heavy machinery. So if you've had the opportunity to be in an environment where a very heavy machine is being operated, you would be able to picture the image of you actually seeing that machine again and you being able to hear the sound of the earth as it's going to keep making a noise, vibrating as the machine is what? Operating. So personification helps us to do what? To communicate more than just the literal meaning. It is beyond just saying, oh, the machine is making a noise. But when you say the earth groaned, groaning is a what? Human attribute. When you give it a inhuman attribute, you can imagine that the earth is complaining that, oh, this machine that you're operating on me, it's too heavy because of the way the earth uh, make some uncomfortable sounds while these heavy machines are being what? Operated. Do you understand? So now we have another example. We have the wind whispered secrets in my ear. So you know when you're walking in a wind, maybe it is a windy day and you're walking, you can imagine the sound. It's going to make some sound in your ear. There is a way you will hear the waves. Do you understand? In your ears. So by saying this, you're not just saying, oh, it was a windy day. You're able to communicate what someone is going to feel in that moment. If you are in that wind at that moment, you're able to communicate, you're able to create pictures, you're able to create memory in your readers or listeners' mind by using personification. So, example 4, we have the tree danced to the tune of the wind. We all know that dancing is a human attribute, but we also know that when it is windy, sometimes the trees are forced to bend towards the direction of the wind. So just like you can see on the screen now. So when you say that the tree danced, you are able to create what? Vivid imagery in the mind of your reader. Your reader can actually picture what is happening to the tree in that moment. Do you understand? So the use of personification is beyond just giving human attributes to inhuman objects. It also helps us to what? Communicate deeper meaning, create memorable imagery in the mind of our listener or our reader. Don't worry, I'm going to explain better on that as we move forward. But for now, these aspects of just being able to define personification, being able to identify it, is also often tested in your YSSE question. So let's consider a few practical questions from your YSSE past questions. Let's see your ability to identify and what indicates the function of a personification expression. So our first question is question G from part B, WAEC 1995, and it reads, as he went to bed late in the evening after a meeting with his younger brothers on how he would pay his own share of their father medical expenses, he prayed for the early arrival of the morning. So we are only concerned with the underlined expression, but I have to give you every sentence, all of the sentence, because I want you to understand the context better. Do you understand? You should also be intentional about doing this before answering any question from your when you're writing your examination. Do you understand? Don't just jump to pick the answer from the excerpt that's given to you. Go back to the passage, read it with the context, try to understand it better before you choose your answer. So the question on this is, what figure of speech is used in the above underlined expression? So here you just need to identify the figure of speech. And we have a second question which says, why do you consider it so? That is, don't just tell us that, oh, it is personification or it is metaphor. You need to tell us why you think it is so. So we have two questions for this particular question. So from the explanation that I've been making, the early arrival of morning, it's a human being that arrives somewhere. Do you understand? So it's an animate attribute. So it is what? Personification. And I consider it so because the author used an animate attribute, arrival, for morning, which is what? Inanimate. So this is an example of how to answer questions like this. If you're familiar with answering past questions already, you would have known that, oh, this is the way to answer questions like this. Do you understand? So let's move on to the next question from our YSSE past question, which is question E from part B, YEC 1998. So we have right there in the examination hall, while his pen was dancing furiously on the paper. That is the question. We have the sentence continues, but I feel like with this little context, you can understand. So they said, what figure of speech is used in the above underlined expression? So is it possible for a pen to dance? No. So dancing is a what? Animate attribute. And the question is also asking that, what does it mean? That is this expression here. What does it mean? So when you say his pen was dancing furiously, the figure of speech there is what? Personification, because you are given the human attribute, which is the ability to dance, to a pen, which is inanimate. And it also means that it was writing as fast as it could. So when you said the pen was dancing furiously, you can imagine how fast the pen must have been moving on the paper for you to describe it that it is what? Dancing furiously. So it simply means that it was writing as fast as it could. Do you understand? Please, if anything is not clear, if you have any question, you can drop it in the comments below. I will be glad to answer. Do you understand? So if you have a question or if you have written your question already, let's continue. So we have question F from section B, YX 2007. So it reads, whenever I ask myself the question, why I have not left this country for good, many answers rush to my mind. So what is that thing? Can answers rush? No. But as I've said earlier, we use figure of speech to communicate how we feel, our emotions, our state of mind, our mood in that moment, beyond just the literal statement of just saying, oh, I actually consider many answers. Do you understand? So the question is saying, what figure of speech is used in this expression? What figure of speech? I think you already know that by now. Can you write it down in the comment section? So it is what? Personification. Yes, because you are giving the animate attributes to what? To an inanimate object. And here, I also need you to note that you were not asked to write why you have chosen your answer or what does it mean. Always calm down before you answer your question and make sure that you are only answering what is asked. Do you understand? Sometimes they don't ask you to tell us why you have chosen that answer or the meaning of it. They only ask you to identify the figure of speech. So just like you have in this question. So don't say because you're already familiar with a lot of questions from the past questions where they ask you to identify and tell us the meaning. Then you go on to identify and tell the meaning. Do you understand? So only answer the questions that you are asked. Do not answer any other question beyond that. So now let's move on to question F from section B7 WAEC 2009. And it reads, only once did the baboons demonstrate in full force against the glare of the light, attacking the sticks, stones, and fist. But the light stood up on the onslaught and the attackers retreated. So we are primarily concerned with the what? The underlined expression, which is, but the light stood up to the what? Onslaught. So is it possible for light to stand up? No. Standing up is what? Animate object, animate attribute, but it is given to what? An inanimate object here. Again, I like to give you the full sentence so that you can understand the context better beyond just the words, only the words that was what? Underlined. So the question is saying, what figure of speech is used in the underlined expression above? So from our explanation, we already know it is what? Personification, because standing up is a what? Human attribute, not an inanimate attribute. Now that it has been given to light, which is inanimate, it is what? Personification. Do you understand? I hope you can understand how I'm able to identify, oh, it is personification. Do you understand? Now let's move on to the next part, which is to discuss the purpose of personification. Most times students just feel like, oh, these figure of speech are just there for me to be able to define them and be able to identify them. But in reality, the purpose of teaching and learning this figure of speech is beyond just being able to define them and being able to identify them. So let's see these purposes. So the first purpose of learning or teaching personification is for you to be able to create vivid imagery. These purposes are also some of the reasons why authors use personification. So we could also have to evoke and convey emotions. That is, beyond just giving the information, you will be able to also communicate the emotion. Do you understand that is happening in that moment? Also, you can also use personification to convey complex ideas. Don't worry, we are still going to explain in detail. And personification also encourages creative and critical thinking. This purpose is actually extremely important, but when we get there, we'll explain better. And it also helps build connection with the reader and the subject matter. That is, you don't just get to know, but you get to understand and experience whatever it is your author is saying. Do you understand? In that moment. Now let's consider how to use personification to achieve all of these purposes. So first, to create vivid imagery. So personification often use human attributes details such as facial expressions and body gestures or movements to relate an idea or create an imagery so that the subject matter is communicated in a more relatable way. So just like the examples that we have earlier, the sun smiled on us. You are not just saying, oh, the sun was shining. When you say the sun smile, in that moment as the reader or as the listener, you can actually imagine it. Do you understand? Beyond, you can imagine how gentle the sun must have been in that moment. You know, the sun can be scorching as well. But when you say it smiles, you can tell that, oh, this person is trying to say that the sun is friendly in this moment. Do you understand? And you can as well imagine how it must have been shining in that moment. So it creates imagery. Another thing is the earth groaned. When you hear this, you can actually, or when you read this, you can imagine, especially if you've experienced how the earth, kind of protest with the kind of sound that accompanies the usage of these heavy duty machines. Do you understand? In that moment, you can imagine listening to that sound again. How the earth is actually doing what? Protesting from these heavy duty machinery. Do you understand? So it helps to create vivid imagery. And imagery is not limited to just visual, that is what you can picture in your mind. It can also be auditory, just like when you say the earth groaned. You can imagine the sound that the earth makes while these heavy duty machines are being operated. Do you understand? So, for you to get better understanding, I'm also going to explain the types of imagery that can be created with the usage of personification and other figure of speech. So, now let's move on to types of what? Imagery. Types of imagery. It is not just, when we say imagery, sometimes students would think that it is only visual, that is what you can picture in your mind. No. Imagery can be visual, can be auditory, can be olfactory. Let's see. So we could have visual imagery. So when we say this imagery is visual, that is immediately you read that line, you can imagine the mental picture in your mind. Do you understand? So just like that, the sun smile, you can imagine the shining of the sun in that moment. Do you understand? There are other examples that we are also going to use to exemplify this. So, example one, we have the moon glowed with a gentle face. So, when you read this, you can picture it in your mind. The mental picture of a beautiful moon on a beautiful evening will come to your mind that, oh, in fact, you can imagine walking or being in a beautiful park in that moment. So, when you use personification this way, it helps to create what? Vivid visual imagery. Another example for visual imagery is the cloud drifted lazily, morphing into castles and creatures. So there's cloud everywhere. So you must have experienced maybe walking on one evening or on a beautiful morning, and you notice the cloud moving towards a particular direction. Do you understand? So moving slowly, slowly, slowly. So because the author want to or the writer want to communicate a particular mood. So the author can say the cloud drifted lazily, that is slowly. And in that moment, you can picture looking at the cloud and seeing the way it is what? Moving slowly, 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 just drifting it or dragging the clouds to a particular destination. So visual imagery or imagery generally is a beautiful language feature that makes us to experience language, to not just speak language, but also have better experience with it. So we are also going to discuss other types of imagery, which includes olfactory, tactile, gustatory, and all. And we are also going to discuss other purposes of personification. But I do not want this video to be too long for you. So you can just click on the link that is showing on your screen, or you can go to the description below to continue to the end. Trust me, you do not want to miss it because this aspect is crucial for your section A, which often carry 50 marks in your YSSE, beyond just being able to identify it in your comprehension section. So trust me, you do not want to miss the rest of this video. So if you are familiar with this imagery, olfactory is what? Imagery that appeal to your sense of what? Let me know in the comments. So, do you have any question? If you have any question, do not hesitate to put it in the comments below, as I'll be there to answer all of your questions. Or if you need to just clarify something, do not hesitate to put it down there, and I'll be there to what? To attend to your concerns, your question, or your clarification. If you are yet to subscribe, kindly subscribe to this channel, like, and please share with your friends who are also writing this examination. Let them benefit as well. Do not just keep it to yourself. Tell a friend to tell a friend about Ighota virtual learning platform and English with RMG. Bye for now.